Okay, so now we have a database set up and we need to create some content within the database that we can use to modify, query, update, delete, whatever it might be we need to do. But before we do any of that, I like to visualize the diagrams or the tables that we're going to be using. And a way for us to do that is to use free tools online. One of them is DrawSQL, DrawSQL.app. A really nice tool. I use it a lot at work also to keep track of all the tables and the connections and everything across. It's quite simple, it's easy and free to set up, and then you can just create a new diagram, and we can just do it here. And database, we can make it public, it's fine. No one's going to see this anyway. And we'll do MySQL, and then what you have here is a blank canvas. So now what I would want to visualize is what we're going to be doing. So imagine that we have a table called something with genders. We will create these tables in a second. I just want you to understand the connections and stuff between them. We'll do something with genders. We'll do something with customers. You don't have to do this. It's just for you, so it's easy for you to follow along, hopefully. We'll do something with some orders. So we need to connect some orders. We also have, and that goes into the orders, there's some products that we will create that will then be connected across. And then let's also say that there are some users. That could be internal users. So the whole idea about using SQL is that you have different types of information stored different places in your database. So instead of having imagine like one big Excel file that has all the information on all types of all rows across all different data fields, that quickly becomes a lot of information. It takes a lot to process. Maybe you only need a tenth of it when you're doing your queries or your analysis. So the idea about relational databases like SQL is that you put some type of information over here, another type of information over here, and then if you need to use both types of informations from the different tables, you join them on an ID or something that is unique across the two tables. So let's imagine that you have an ID on the gender table and you have an ID on your customers. Then you can use those two different IDs across those two different tables and connect them. So imagine if we add a column here to the gender. So there's an ID column, but then there's also a gender, which will be it won't be a big int. It will be where do you choose that? Here, it will be a varchar, so a variable character of a certain length. So here it just says 255, it doesn't matter. So, but it's just to say it's not going to be a number. So if you imagine in the database that we will create in just a second, imagine that there's a ID and a name, and then the first ID will be female and the second ID will be male. This is going to be the table that we will create for genders. So now if you imagine on the other side of, what did we say, customers. So on customers there will be an ID number as well, and there will be a bunch of different information, and then out here there will be something called gender ID. So it will have an ID as well. Maybe that's a different ID format, like so. They will maybe have names, John and Joanne. And then the gender ID, instead of here saying female, this will say male and this will say female. This, if you're thinking about it from a IT perspective, like process-wise and the amount of computing power it takes to handle varchars, which is a string of text, compared to a string if we did this, then this is a better solution for the computer compared to this, because this contains much more information, so it takes longer to process. So ideally, we when we're looking in SQL, we like IDs and numbers, because they're easier to process, they're faster to process, and then we can see that these two will connect to these two over here. And if you then need to get the information that we have sitting here, which we won't have, you connect them, and then you can say whatever is on the line or on the row of number 1, which is female, we can show that over here if we want to. But if we don't want to, this will take up way less space, and that's why it's beneficial. So SQL is what we call relational databases, meaning that the different tables have relations to each other, and that's the whole idea about it. So if we go back into our setup here, then we will have an ID and then a gender with a name either being male or female. And then in the customers, you can imagine that we will have things like the ID, that's fine. Then we maybe have the customer name, which won't be a big int, but it will be a varchar. Then we might also have customer email, which is a varchar, and then we might have a customer gender, which is a varchar. No, that will be an int, and so on and so forth. And then the idea, and this is why I really like tools like this, the idea is that you can then understand the connections between the two tables by simply drawing a line to it like this and like that. We won't go full-fledged on this, but it's a nice tool to have. Also, if you're thinking about setting up a database yourself, you need to visualize how the different tables are connected, and you can use this to do so.